Okay, today we're going to talk about value stream mapping, VSM, which is a core RevOps tool, a core RevOps concept. But before we get to the definition of value stream mapping, we really have to understand the problem that it's trying to solve. So when sales and customer service and customer success and renewal teams operate in separate silos, organizations routinely leave a bunch of revenue on the table, millions of dollars. And research on marketing sales teams alignment finds that nearly half of all qualified leads stagnate in ambiguous pipeline stages where no single person feels responsible for moving them forward. And I'm going to include links to that research in the show notes here. But in mid-market B2B settings, handling 200 leads valued at $50,000 each with a 20% close rate, that stall rate can translate into an annual loss approaching $1 million. So traditional RevOps audits verify that your systems are connected and that the dashboards actually refresh, but they almost never expose these kind of silent revenue leaks that often amount up to seven figures. So by applying this concept of revenue value stream mapping, adapting the lean management practices of value stream mapping or VSM to RevOps, then you treat every phase of the customer lifecycle as part of one continuous flow of value. And this unified perspective reveals exactly where deals are stalling, where service requests are vanishing, where you are threatening renewal rates, and where fractured data really obscures the reality of where revenue is leaking in your pipeline. And the result of doing RevOps audits in this way and framing RevOps in this way is a practical end-to-end framework for practitioners for targeting high-impact improvements to your marketing, sales, and customer success pipelines and flows, and building predictable, scalable growth. So let's get into defining some core concepts to value stream mapping, to VSM, right? Because before we map our revenue flow, it's really helpful to just clarify these essential concepts, because then we'll be equipped with a kind of conceptual framework that we'll need to map revenue in a useful way. So the first thing, before we can understand what revenue value stream mapping is, we have to understand what's a value stream. In RevOps, the value stream comprises every activity that delivers customer value. From the moment a prospect expresses interest through a closed sale, to onboarding, to service interactions, and the eventual expansion or renewal of their contract. So that's the value stream. The value stream is just the aggregate, every single activity that comprises the delivery of value from your company to the customer. Value stream mapping, this was actually originally a manufacturing concept, or a concept that arose in the manufacturing space. So value stream mapping, or VSM, is a method for visualizing the entire flow of work, identifying delays, identifying waste, and guiding a continuous improvement. And there's a really great article on that by Rother and Shook that I'm going to link in the show notes below, that I'm drawing a little bit from. So we've got value stream, which is every activity that adds value or comprises the process of adding value to the customer. There's value stream mapping, which is the process of visualizing that value stream. And then there's flow time. So flow time measures how long a specific work item, such as a deal or a support ticket, spends in a given phase. Okay, that's flow time. How long a given deal or support ticket spends in a specific phase. Then you have flow efficiency. So flow efficiency is the ratio of active work time, like when someone progresses the item, to total time, including waiting and rework. So low efficiency highlights wasted hours. So with these definitions in hand, we got value stream mapping, flow time, and flow efficiency. You can move kind of beyond tool-focused checklists to a holistic, data-driven view of how value actually moves through your organization. So the first thing that we do in value stream mapping is that we sketch our current state map, right? So we begin by convening a brief workshop with our representatives in our company, from marketing, from sales, from customer success, from IT, from finance, and we get on a whiteboard or a virtual board, and we draw boxes for each major phase of your revenue process. So that's pretty universally going to be lead capture and qualification, opportunity development and closing, onboarding and support, and expansion and renewal. Okay, that's going to be pretty universally the buckets that you're going to have on your whiteboard. And the language you use for that may be a little bit different. You may want to add some asterisks to those, but you should start by having lead capture and qualification, opportunity development and closing, onboarding and support, and expansion and renewal. And if your actual process genuinely differs from that, then you can differ from that. But I would recommend starting there. And then between each of those boxes, lead capture, qualification, opportunity development and closing, onboarding and support, expansion and renewal, between each of those boxes, note how work passes from one team to another. So for instance, when marketing hands a qualified lead to sales, or when sales hands an active contract to the onboarding team, right? That happens between those boxes. So if you have access to basic timing data, which your CRM should, for example, CRMs like HubSpot provide this data out of the box, you have access to this basic timing data, then you annotate each box on that whiteboard with the approximate flow times and efficiencies. And if not, then just try to approximate, use team estimates, interview your stakeholders from the relevant teams and guesstimate, but you've got to start with some data and you've got to annotate. You've got to start somewhere in terms of, what does our flow time look like and what does our efficiency look like? Even rough numbers expose glaring bottlenecks very often. So then you can move from your whiteboard with these flow time and flow efficiency annotations. You can move to the actual process of identifying high impact metrics. So these metrics will come to the surface. So rather than tracking, which is a huge RevOps temptation, every single conceivable statistic, you focus on 3 metrics that consistently uncover the deepest leaks. These 3, universally, you want to be paying attention to these 3 metrics in terms of this flow chart, right? The first is the entry-exit gap. So for each phase, you compare how many items enter versus exit in a given period, right? So a large gap analysis signals like a lot of stalled work or stalled deals, right? So you have first of all, when you're identifying those high impact metrics, the first metric that you want to look at is the entry exit gap. The second is your response cycle time. So in service phases, you measure how long it takes to acknowledge and resolve incoming tickets against your published SLAs, your service level agreements. So how long are we saying we are responding and resolving client tickets, and how long is it actually taking us to respond and to resolve these tickets? And then, so we've got the entry exit gap, the response cycle time, and then you have a data completeness rate. So you want to determine what percentage of records populate essential fields. So, deal amount, close date, customer segment, industry, and then missing data obviously undermines forecasting and segmentation and forces you to fly blind as a company. And so overlaying these metrics on your map, again, you've got entry exit gap, response cycle time, and data completeness rate. Overlying these metrics on your map, on your whiteboard, in your meeting, highlights which phases warrant immediate attention. And then, once you've identified, your critical performance metrics and opportunities for improvement, now you want to actually implement improvement. And so you want to improve the critical bottleneck that you identify. So I'll use an anonymized example from a client that we had at RevOps HQ. So RevOps HQ is our RevOps consultancy, and we're a certified HubSpot solutions partner. So we do most of our work in HubSpot, but we are RevOps focused because a lot of what makes HubSpot useful is a kind of RevOps consciousness, if you will. So we had a customer that really aligned with that perspective, and we worked together. This was a mid-market software vendor, discovered that basically half of its free trial signups stalled in a single phase labeled solution design. And by mapping the flow, the team saw that 12 business days elapsed on average without any meaningful progress, and fewer than 1 in 4 trials ever moved forward. So rather than burdening the risk committee with more meetings, they just piloted a streamlined 2-step approach. Number 1, technical assessment. Dedicated engineer reviews requirements within 2 business days. Number 2 is a proposal draft, where a solutions architect drafts and sends a tailored proposal within the next 3 days. And each step had a clear owner and an explicit deadline flagged in the CRM. And within 1 quarter, the stalled trial rate fell by over 60% and delivered hundreds of thousands in new bookings. So simply by breaking an amorphous phase into defined steps with accountability, they were able to massively generate their revenue and improve their revenue flow by focusing on these kind of key RevOps metrics here. And then finally, you want to embed processes that continue this flow of improvement, right? So these one-off fixes can often fade into the background very quickly in a fast-paced startup culture, like of ongoing optimization. So to keep your revenue stream healthy, you have to actually have practices, cadences of maintenance. And so here are 4 rituals that we've been helping companies set up and establish among their teams that have helped their teams to continually optimize their RevOps team's performance after they've fixed some of these core bottlenecks that are happening. So the first is the monthly flow review. So the monthly flow review is where your RevOps team spends 10 minutes each month updating your map and metrics. Okay, so this is extremely important. You need to have a source of truth for your value stream map. And you need to highlight any phase where more than 30% of items stall or where response times exceed SLAs. So that's the monthly flow review. You're just looking back at your value stream map and you're saying, okay, how are we doing? How are we performing? And you're listening and you're flagging any critical issues. The second cadence that you want to have that continually optimizes RevOps is rotating ownership. So you assign the monthly review to a different team every quarter. So it's going to be marketing 1 quarter, sales the next quarter, then customer service or customer success the next quarter, right? Fresh perspectives catch hidden issues. They run through a standardized process prescribed by RevOps. So this is guided by RevOps, but you want those different teams and the different points of view saying, oh, okay, we can see how marketing's, as customer success, we can see how marketing's, failing here because we're not biased, because we're not trying to make marketing look better than they are, whereas marketing's going to want to make marketing look better than they are, right? So if people can kind of put their egos down and take feedback cross-functionally, then this rotating ownership cadence for that monthly flow review can be really, really helpful. The third cadence is the cross-functional audit. So once per quarter, invite a small group from outside the RevOps organization to challenge your assumptions. So posing kind of edge case scenarios for enterprise deals or complex support requests or multi-region renewals, right? This kind of audit circle often surfaces rare but damaging leaks in your value stream. And then finally, the fourth cadence that you can embed in your culture is having an onboarding flow mastery. So train every single new revenue, sales, and service or success hire on your value stream map and the core metrics so they understand the machine that they're a part of. When everyone speaks the same flow language from day one, handoffs between teams become much smoother and accountability becomes much sharper. Okay, so here's a couple things you can do today to get the ball rolling on these things. First is you want to sketch your top level revenue map. Get into Miro, use a notation language heck, you can use an informal pseudocode notation language. You can make up a visual language. I like to use BPMN, Business Process Modeling Notation 2.0. It takes a little bit of time to learn, really not much, and a little bit of practice, and you'll be on your way. But honestly, just build a flow chart. If you don't know BPMN, or if you don't know another business process notation like visual notation system, just use a flow chart and make something that feels like it makes sense to you, and then communicate that. So first thing you do that you can get started with today is create that top level revenue map. If you don't have a value stream map, if you don't have a VSM today, the first step is to just get your rough draft out there, right? Capture phases, capture handoffs in 10 minutes or do a Pomodoro timer, right? Frame it as your shared blueprint for growth and then share that with your team and get feedback. That will get the ball rolling, because even if everybody says, this sucks, this is wrong, we hate this, like that is progress. right? Something is better than nothing, and this will ignite conversations. I've never seen this not ignite productive conversations. This often attracts a lot of attention from the executive team in the company saying, is that how we're doing things? Is that what's happening? Right? Or yeah, that's how it should be happening. I really like this. It's kind of a comfort blanket for executives to know that their organizations that they're managing are thinking in these terms and they're wanting to systematize the company. So this is going to not only give you big brownie points, but is also going to actually move the ball forward in terms of implementing these cadences and systems that are going to capture insights and reveal and surface insights about revenue leakage. So next step to action plan, sketch your current state top level revenue map. Second, choose the phase on that map with the largest entry exit gap. Where are the most records coming in that do not exit, right? Gather the raw counts for the past month, calculate the percentage stalled, and commit to a focused improvement, whether that's adding clear ownership or tighter deadlines or breaking the phase maybe into 2 steps, right? You want to say, okay, what's our bottleneck? What's our lowest performing? What's our most problematic phase in this value stream map, in this VSM that we have? And what is the simplest thing we can do to resolve this pain point? So you want to sketch your top level revenue map, identify biggest problem area, propose the simplest solution, and then finally pilot your improvements on a small scale. Say, let's implement that simple solution today. Let's have an EOD goal. Let's make it. You want to track your progress over 4 weeks and scale what works and refine what doesn't. Very simple. So in a day, honestly, in under an hour, you can have your map. You can have your you can identify your biggest entry exit gap. You can have the simplest solution, and you can implement that simplest solution. You could do it in under an hour, right? You could speed run this for sure. So the benefit of all of this, obviously, is that by treating RevOps as one unified value stream rather than a set of isolated pillars, you'll uncover and you'll seal these kind of hidden revenue leaks. And the clarity that you gain from revenue value stream map turns audits into strategic growth exercises rather than, audits has this kind of like bad, connotation, like from the IRS, right? But an audit can be an exercise in growth. It can help your organization recover lost opportunities, accelerate cycles, build repeatable, sustainable revenue engines, right? So these are the benefits of performing audits in these ways. And this is why you want to use value stream mapping as kind of like the basic language of how your organization conceives and is a practitioner of RevOps. So I have a couple resources that I'm going to link in the show notes on value stream mapping as they relate to RevOps, and hope you find them helpful.